Go ahead and start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. So we're continuing on the topic of patience and gratitude. And I know it's been a couple weeks, so where we left off, we were talking about where patience is needed and some of the definitions of patience. And we said that patience can be many different things. We said sometimes it can be considered as courage, it could be considered as steadfastness, it could be a number of different things. And so from the last point that we ended off on is that Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned patience is needed in three things: in obeying the commands of Allah, in avoiding the sins, and accepting the decree of Allah. So patience, normally, like we said, it means to withhold yourself, withhold your tongue, withhold your limbs from doing things that exhibit impatience, right? Things that are harmful to ourselves, or from complaining or falling into despair. But when we look at it in an Islamic context, patience is basically you're holding on to the deen in these situations. So we need patience to be steadfast, to be proactive in obeying the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need patience in avoiding sin. So we don't fall into sins. We need to hold ourselves from falling into sins. And then when the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes upon us, and this is whether it's good or bad. Most of the time it's talking about when it's bad. But Allah could give you something good as a test, and we still need to hold on to our deen, whether the bad happens to us or the good happens to us. Some of the people, they may ask Allah to make them rich. Allah may make them rich, and then they start chasing dunya, and they lose their deen. Right? So whatever Allah Ta'ala decrees, we should also have patience. And so he said patience in these areas is developed by maintaining sincere worship done upon the sunnah. When we do the righteous deeds, the deeds that we're doing for the sake of Allah, and we're doing them upon the sunnah, this is a way to develop that patience in the way of worshiping Allah. Also, increasing fear and shyness. The more we have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His punishment, this is one of the ways. But as the Imam said, it's even greater if you are shy, right? You don't perform sins because you're shy to do them, right? A lot of times, he said, yes, it's a good thing if you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you fear going to the hellfire, you fear, all the things that we hear about in Yom Al-Qiyamah. He said, but the one who does so because they're ashamed to do the sin. Right? I don't want to disobey Allah because I'm ashamed to, because He's given me so much, He's done all this good to me. How can I then go and disobey Him? So this was of a greater type of level of taqwa. And then with regards to the decree of Allah, we consider Allah's blessings and rewards. So if you go through something bad, something happens to you, say, for instance, your car gets messed up, or you lose your job, or you lose a family member. You should consider Allah's blessings and rewards that He did give you, right? Instead of focusing on the loss, and be more grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Or there might be some good in the bad too.
There may be some good in the bad.
There may be a good reason why your car is messed up. Maybe you was going to get in an accident the next week.
Yep. But either way, consider the blessings.
Yeah.
Right? When you look at the thing as to why it happened, you may never know. But you should look at, okay, well, I lost these things. There was one of the tabi'een. I believe it was Urwa ibn Zubayr, radiallahu anhu, on his father. His father was a companion. His mother was a companion. His aunt was a companion. And all of them were promised paradise. SubhanAllah. Right? His grandfather was promised paradise. His grandfather was Abu Bakr. Right? Urwa ibn Zubayr, his father, Zubayr ibn Awwam, was also one of the 10 who was promised Jannah. But this man, Urwa, he had a lot of children. I believe he had 9 children. And he was going to visit the Khalifa at the time. And his son was very handsome. He was dressed right. He looked nice. And he came in. And when the Khalifa saw him, he said, "This is how a young man of Quraysh should look." And he gave him the evil eye by doing it. Huh? He gave him the evil eye, not intentional.
He gave evil eye
To the son, yeah, who looked nice. By saying, this is why when we see something that we like in someone and looks nice, and even in ourselves, we should say, Barakallahu feek, or Barakallahu fiyya. We go by the mirror and we see that. We should ask Allah Ta'ala to bless those people in those things, so that we don't put the evil eye on them unintentionally.
By the evil eye, you mean thought it was some bad fortune.
Yeah.
The word thought it was bad. The word evil eye, is that something from the...
So we say evil eye, but the real is just the eye. Al-ayn. Al-ayn, the eye. Right? And so he put that on him. The boy was later on, he was in a stable dealing with a horse, and he got trampled to death. Then Urwa also lost his leg. His leg got what we call gangrene. And back then, there's nothing to do but cut it off. And so he was, and there was no anesthesia or anything like that. He had to get it taken out. And when they asked him about it, he said, Allah gave me 4 limbs, and he took one. He gave me 9 children, and he took one. So when we look at the level of patience, and looking at, trying to find the good out of such a bad situation. So always consider the blessings and rewards of Allah.
For instance, I do that a lot. Like I was like, dang, I can't get around like I used to. I can't walk. I can't run. Like I'm so grateful that Allah gave me like a brain.
Yes.
I would much rather be physical handicapped than mental handicapped.
Right.
You
And who knows if,
Now, I
if
think
you
it was
had
for a
everything,
reason anyway.
if everything worked,
Yeah, maybe
you
I
may
would
be
be
out
Muslim.
there. Yeah, you may be out there in the streets or something.
Oh, I would have.
Yeah. And that's how it goes with a lot of people. So today we're going to look at the categories of patience. Categories of patience. And so in here, Imam Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that patience follows the rulings of patience. So what are the 5 rulings of everything that we have? Either it is, no,
Talk about Iran.
right, haram.
Haram,
Either it's
halal.
something we cannot do, or it's something makruh, something we shouldn't do. Halal has 4 categories, but so makruh is one of them. So either it's haram, we can't do it. Makruh, we shouldn't do it. but it's permissible to do, but we shouldn't do it. Mubah, meaning it's allowed, we can do it. Mustahab, we should do it. Or it is fard or wajib, meaning that we must do it. Must do it. So everything that we do in life follows these things. It will either fall into, it will either be something that is fard, that we have to do, or mustahab, or mubah, or makruh, or haram. Right? Everything follows this type of rule. And patience is one of those things. So, consequently, there is a type of patience that we have to have. And there's a type of patience that we should have, we don't have to. There's a patience that it's okay to have, you know. There's a patience, you okay? There's a patience that we should not have. And then there's a type of patience that is haram. You good?
Yeah, I'm gonna wipe it off.
You're having some patience right now with your teeth. Right? And we said that this is the patience that is, yeah,
I'm gonna go to
that's,
that room. Thank you.
that's against your will, right? But at least you're not complaining, and, you know, yeah, you got some drugs. Right? So,
The patience that we should not have.
uh-huh.
Like, we should be patient with wrongdoing or rob or something like that.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that. So he said patience can also be divided into categories following the 5 categories of deed, namely wajib, mandub, or mustahab, mahdur, or haram, makruh, or mubah. Right? Like we talked about. So obligatory patience. What is the patience? That is wajib. Right? So patience in abstaining from haram things and action. This is something that you have to do. Right? This is the type of sabr that we should have, or that we're obligated to have. To stay away from haram things and actions. If we're able to, right? If we fail in this, then we have committed a sin. Patience in carrying out the obligatory deeds. So we need to have patience in staying away from doing haram and doing the things that are obligatory. So now, like say for example, the 5 pillars, right? I have to pray, right? 5 times a day, especially for men. We don't get no breaks, you know. So we have to be patient in carrying those out. We have to keep on doing it no matter what, and do things to aid in that, right? And then, like we said, patience in facing adversity, which is beyond one's control, such as illness, poverty, etc. So when we face adversities that are beyond our control, whatever Allah Ta'ala decreed, this is the obligatory type of patience. So, that which, and he used the word mandub, or we could say also mustahab. The encouraged patience. The patience that you're not obligated to do, but it is something that is encouraged for you to have. You should have. And that is patience from abstaining from makruh things. Right? We said that makruh is a level of halal, right? Closer to haram, right? But it's not haram, it's halal. He says that the preferred patience is to stay away from even things that are makruh. You know it's makruh. You know it can be done. You know that it's allowed. You're not going to be sinning if you do it. But if you stay away from that, that's better, right? Because it's disliked. Why do you think that's a good thing? Why would it be better to stay away from things that are disliked.
Because it shows a level of God consciousness.
Okay.
Right? It's just like even if you don't have to, but you do it anyway out of your love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know?
Okay.
So
You'll be more tempted to do something wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
So like raising your sheep on
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
border of the land.
Yeah, because if you're close, if I don't even do that which is makruh, let's say like praying the salah late in the day, it's very close to the end of the salah. If I don't pray in that makruh time,
You don't run.
then I'm not at risk of praying in the haram time, right? If I don't go like Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, don't go near to zina, right? Don't go near it. He doesn't say don't commit zina. He says don't go near zina, right? Because if I don't go near it, I can't go to it. Right? So, but if I'm close to zina, like I'm almost on, I'm getting hot and heavy, I'm out there wilding out, something can happen, right? So it is preferred to have patience in abstaining from disliked things, and patience in performing acts of worship which are liked and encouraged, that are mustahab. If you stay on doing the things that are optional but are encouraged, then when the time comes, you're not going to falter in doing that which is obligatory. Right? If you, let's say for instance with the salah, we have the 5 obligatory prayers. If we do the sunnah, right? What are the sunnah? We were just talking about this before the salah. There's 12 rakat. What's the first one?
but you mean the rakas, the 12
That are
rakas?
attached to the 5
So it's
prayers.
going to be 2 before Fajr.
2 before
It's
Fajr,
going to be 4 before Dhuhr.
4 before Dhuhr.
And it's going to be, is it another 4 before Asr?
No,
There's no Sunnah with Asr. 2 after Dhuhr.
2 after Dhuhr.
2 after Maghrib.
2 after Maghrib.
And 2 after Isha.
After Isha.
Yeah.
Right.
Ugh.
What are some other prayers that we can do?
Tahiyatul Masjid.
Tahiyatul Masjid, whatever.
And actually that's, you was talking about that, it's not, you can go to a masjid and sit down, but it's makruh to not do that, so it's good if you do it every time.
Huh? Yes, after wudu. Yeah. What about Salatul Duha? Qiyam al-Layl, Tahajjud, whatever. Right? So if you do all those things, what is the likelihood that you're going to fall into missing the salah?
It's going to be less.
It's going to be severely less, right? If you're doing, if I get up every morning for Fajr to pray the 2 rakat before the Fajr, and if I'm taking care of that on a regular basis, the likelihood that I'm going to miss Fajr is very small. It can still happen, but this is the preferred type of patience, that you're encouraged to do things that are liked and encouraged. And the third type of preferred patience is patience in restraining from taking revenge. Restraining from taking revenge. This means someone did something to you and you have the right of revenge. I'm not talking about you getting revenge for something that's not your right. You have the right to revenge. You have the right to do it. And Allah tells you in the Quran, and he praises the people who, when a wrong is done to them, that they seek revenge. Right? But you decide to do the greater thing, which is don't take revenge. You could do it, but you don't. And this is a preferred type of patience. Right? Someone does something to you, maybe an enemy of yours slashes your tires. I don't know how often that happens to people. It's been a long time since this happened to me. That was high school. So. But yeah, so you have situations like that, and you know who did it, and you decide, you know what, I'm not going to take revenge. This is a preferred type of patience. All right, the next one, and he doesn't go in the order of the thing. So the next one is what we would say is haram patience. Right? So we've only talked about patience, which is either obligatory or preferred, desired. Yeah. Now is haram patience. So patience in abstaining from food and drink until you die. Some people might do a hunger fast or a hunger strike. And they're like, I'm going to not eat or drink until they change whatever policy. And if I die, then I die.
They do that when in prison sometimes.
Sometimes.
They're protesting against the food.
So, abstaining from food and drink until you die. This is forbidden for you to do. It's forbidden. This is even in the case of Ramadan. If you're getting to the point where it's going to kill you.
Is that based on the Quranic verse when Allah tells you not to harm yourself?
Yes, yeah, a lot of this is, yeah. But you don't, like, let's say you're in Ramadan, it's Texas, long day, and you're getting dehydrated, and really dehydration can happen very quickly. Heat stroke can happen very quickly. You could die, right? At that point in time, it is haram for you to continue fasting. Haram, right? So abstaining from food and drink until you die is a haram type of patience. Patience in abstaining from eating haram meat, carrion, and blood when the alternative is death or starvation. So if you're in a situation, this is what we call darura, where you're in a situation of need, you're going to die if you don't eat. And all that you have is haram meat, right? Maybe you have some pork. Or maybe you have carrion, like an animal, you found some roadkill, and you got to eat. Or some blood. It's just some blood just sitting there. I mean, it's weird, but
you think it's hypothetical. This actual situation happened more recently than you think.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you remember in the 90s, I say remember because you're alive in the 90s, not me. But when the Republic of Srpska invaded Bosnia, and the US military actually dropped a bunch of food on the Bosnians that just contained all pork in it. It's like if you're getting bombed
I didn't know that
people
part.
trying to genocide you and you can't go to the grocery store, you might want to, in that situation it would be permissible for you to eat pork if you're being shelled,
right.
for days and then you don't have, so I mean in that situation it would be permissible to eat that because
exactly.
you don't have any other option.
And this is why you see a lot of times when, I know in Syria, a lot of the people were seeking fatwa, and the scholars were allowing them to eat cats, right? Because normally a cat isn't permissible, right? And so, but this is the thing, when the alternative is death or starvation, then you have to do that. And for you to not eat that, if you're about to die and you're worried about if it's hand cut zabiha, you have to look at it like you cannot prefer death to those things. There was one of the companions, he was actually captured. His name was Abdullah ibn Hudhafa radiallahu anhu. And he was captured by the Christians, and they did torture upon him. One of the things that they did is they put him in a room in his cell, and they only gave him to eat wine and swine. Imagine that they give you a bottle, right? Corbel or whatever, Dom Perignon, and then pork chops. And they're probably seasoned great, they're smelling good, and he's in prison. And this is all they have to give him. But he didn't eat. he wasn't going to die, but they went to him and said, "Why didn't you eat?" He said, "It's permissible for me to eat those things." He said, "But I didn't want to give you something to where you could criticize my deen or make the deen look bad by having me eat it." And just so that the end of the story, he actually was set free. And this happened during the time of Umar ibn Khattab. And when he returned home, Omar kissed his head. But if you listen, sometimes it's called the prisoner of Rome. So if you look for the story. But in normal circumstances, if you are faced with something like that, it is haram for you to abstain if the alternative is death. Also, patience in refraining from begging. And there is dispute as to whether begging from people is forbidden or permissible. So he's saying patience in refraining from begging. Like meaning if you absolutely need it and you can't get by without it, then it is haram for you to not beg. However, some of the scholars, such as Imam Ahmed, he felt that it was never permissible to beg. Begging itself is not permissible except for need. Right? But Imam Ahmed, he thought that even if it was near death, he said, there's no way that Allah Ta'ala is not going to give you something. So he was saying, so don't ever beg.
Well, what did it have by begging? Asking for something more than once?
It's not about, it's just about asking anything, you know.
Any help?
Yeah, unless it's something that is out of necessity. And one of the reasons why the scholars say that you don't do the begging is because when we look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he says the upper hand is better than the lower hand. The hand giving is better than the hand receiving. Because the hand receiving, when you're begging, you have to lower yourself, lower your esteem in the eyes of the people. Right? In Islam, we're encouraged to give to the beggar. Right? There's plenty of ayat and hadith about that. But as far as begging yourself, if it is not necessary, you're not allowed as a Muslim to lower your esteem in the eyes of the people in order to ask for something. Because number one, who should you ask first? Allah. And when we look at the companions, we find them asking out of necessity. Right? I mean, you have people going to Aisha's house and asking for some dates. And Aisha's like, I don't have nothing but 3, or I don't have nothing but 1 date, and a woman splits it between her kids, Everybody was poor at that time. Right? But, like I said, there is a difference of opinion as to whether begging itself is forbidden or permissible. All right, let's continue because we're running out of time. So patience in enduring things that may lead to death, such as predators, snakes, fire, and water. You're doing things that may kill you, right? And a lot of people, we do this for like tough guy type of championships or things like that.
Fear factor.
Fear factor, yeah, because, fear factor, they have all the people around you, like what's that show, Naked and Afraid, the people out in the wilderness and stuff like that. But you're doing things that may lead to your death. Right? He said, if you're doing these things that can kill you, right? Like the Pentecostal preacher who drinks the poison and he's playing with the snakes and stuff like that to show that he's got iman, He said this is haram type of patience. And then patience at times of fitna when the Muslims are fighting Muslims. He said patience in abstaining from fighting at such a time when the Muslims are killing Muslims is mubah, is permissible. Indeed, it is mustahab. This is what So when the Muslims are fighting each other, for you to not do anything, that's permissible. But if you are participating, you're getting on one side or the other, and you're going to kill Muslims. This
Real
is the
quick,
type of
back to when you was talking about the poison, before this. Okay, there's a famous video I seen on like TikTok where this Muslim, it was a bunch of like a preacher, Muslim, you know, different faiths or whatever, and they were trying to get him to drink poison. And then the Muslims just drank the poison and ate it and said Bismillah.
Yeah, he shouldn't have done something.
No.
He shouldn't have done that. Because what if he died? He doesn't know that Allah will. You think the Prophet ﷺ didn't say Bismillah? And he got poisoned.
Yeah.
Right? Unintentionally. How about someone who's less than the Prophet ﷺ intentionally drinking poison?
Yeah.
All right, so the disliked. So this is permissible. You can have this type of patience, but you shouldn't. So he said patience in abstaining from physical appetites, food, drink, and sex, to the extent of causing damage to your health. So it's permissible for you to stay away from food. Like you can fast, right? There's a thing, intermittent fast. But when it causes damage to your health, doesn't kill you, but it'll cause damage to your health. Or you stay away from, let's say, sexual intercourse for so long that you can no longer perform. This is dislike. I knew it was coming. I just thought it would come quicker. So you were like 5 seconds off.
I can keep it chill.
You know what you want to say?
He said he's talking from personal experience.
He needs the little blue pill.
Or patience in doing a makruh deed. You know that it's something that you shouldn't do. It's permissible, but you shouldn't. You're always praying just when Dhuhr is about to go out. Right? You know that what you're doing is very close to haram, but it's not haram. He said if you keep doing that, that's the dislike type of patience. Again, it's something that's allowable, but you shouldn't do it. And then the permissible or the mubah type of patience is patience in abstaining from mubah deeds. These are deeds that are neither disliked nor encouraged. Just regular deeds, right? So, like say for example, I say, I'm not gonna watch TV. TV isn't, some scholars do have the opinion that it is haram, and some say makruh, some say, but let's say I'm not gonna watch the Mavs play. It's mubah, right? It's okay. It doesn't matter either way you go.
But if it was Kevin Durant, it may be haram.
All right, and so he also mentions, and we're going to end with this, bad patience and good patience. So he says bad patience means having patience and keeping away from Allah. It sounds weird, right? Having patience and keeping away from Allah and His love and His will, because this prevents a person from fulfilling his potential of attaining perfection and doing what he was created for. He said this is the worst type of patience and the most difficult, because there is no type of patience stronger than that of the person who willfully keeps away from his Creator. As apart from Him, there is no life at all. So imagine someone has patience in trying to stay away from Allah. We see this from amongst the atheists. The atheists. Atheists, they see signs. They know that God is real. But they just don't want to believe it, because if I believe that God is real, then that means that I gotta worship Him. And that means I have to follow His commandments, right? And so they have patience. They abstain from their belief. Some people don't want to practice Islam. They may believe that Islam is the truth, and they never say the Shahada because
Somebody told me that it makes sense. Like Islam makes complete sense, but they don't think they have the what it takes to pray all the time and fast.
yeah. And so, and this is that type of person.
Yeah.
They are abstaining from that. They're abstaining. I mean, think about it. They're giving up paradise that they know, they
For the
believe
dunya.
for the dunya because they don't feel they would rather not be a Muslim than be a bad Muslim. So he says, no one is as careless as the person who has no interest in what Allah has prepared for his friends in the hereafter. That which no eye has ever seen and no ear has ever heard and has never been imagined by any person. So there are people who have this bad, and this is the worst type of patience, that you're staying away from Allah. And a lot of times, that's what enters your heart, especially if you find yourself doing wrong. Right? You don't want to be reminded. You don't want to come to the masjid because the brothers there are going to tell you to do good. You want to stay doing wrong. Shaitan tricks you into having this type of bad patience. When the brothers call you on the phone or text you, you don't answer, because you're trying to be bad, right? You see the brothers come around and you hide. You see them coming and I can tell you this because I've had this type of patience. I've had that bad type of patience. When you're doing wrong, you'll notice that you don't want to do right. I'm not a saint. So, good type of patience, he says, consists of two types. Patience for the sake of Allah and patience by the help of Allah. Who can tell me the difference? What is patience for the sake of Allah?
You're doing it for Allah, but it's you. And of Allah is like
And the patient by the help of Allah.
It's like Allah is helping you.
Okay.
Do it.
So he says it's impossible to have patience for the sake of Allah without patience by the help of Allah. So you have to have both. So he says everyone has to exercise patience in order to face difficulties, whether he has done so willingly or unwillingly. The noble person exercises patience willingly because he realizes the benefits of patience and he knows that he'll be rewarded for his patience or be criticized if he panics. He's aware that if he does not have patience, panicking and impatience will not help him to regain missed opportunities and will not take away the things that he dislikes. So this is the person who has patience for the sake of Allah, and it is by the help of Allah. So he said, just because we're going to finish up here, he said, a wise man said, a man with wisdom does as soon as adversity appears that which a foolish man does after a month. Right? The person who knows how to be patient when that adversity comes, at the first strike, right? Sabrun Jamil, right? At the first strike of patience, he's patient. But the foolish man, he becomes patient after a month. A month later, he's like, all right, I gotta stop panicking. I gotta calm down and do all this stuff. So lastly, let me read this lastly. The ignoble man exercises patience only when he realizes that he has no choice. After wasting a lot of time and energy in panicking and struggling, he realizes that his impatience will not help him. Then he exercises patience in the same way that a person who has been tied up to be whipped exercises patience. And we'll go ahead and stop here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Yeah, next time, which will be in a couple of weeks, we'll do the ways to strengthen patience.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله